Who better to hear about love than Vrindavaneshwari, our Swamini Srimati Radhika herself. So we want to hear some katha about love from Radharani herself today. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Narayana Parayana Jarankara Nashana Rupa Nugamitra Prema Parojanaete Namah Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaye Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti Viranta Narayaniti Namane Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapara Kamalam Shri Guram Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganaragunata Vitam Tvam Sajivam Swadvetam Savadutam Prahijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha Vrindai Tulasi Dhyai Priyaye Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Pravidevi Satyavate Namo Namah. The Bengali poet Chandidas, he has said, Priti Balia e tina akahara, e tina bhuvana sara, e mora mani hayarati dina, iha vahi nahi ara. These three syllables, priti, love, are the essence of all the three planetary systems, and they remain in my mind day and night. I think of nothing but them. Sapta Goswami Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written a very beautiful article called Priti, about love. And this is the school of love. We are in the school of love. But what is love? We are running around saying, join our school, join our school. But what is love? Do we have love? Do we even know what it is? So here Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I won't go too much into the metaphysics of this article just due to consideration of time. Another time we can go more deeply into this. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he is proposing to us that every being in the world is controlled by love. What do you think? Is that true or not? Why is it true? Don't just nod your head, why? Bolo.
It's God, Krishna created. It's part of, it's our telos. It's to serve. And in real service is love.
So when we're purified and we're doing our Nitya Dharma, we're in love.
Yeah.
But what about the rubbish man out on the street? What about the person emptying pig stool from the pig farm? Are they controlled by love?
Yeah. Krishna's mercy is often suffering, so those jivas that are still engaged in the material nature, that's because they haven't. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in Jivadharma, is that's Krishna's mercy, that you have to get to the point where you're suffering so much to want to experience
So the suffering and the dissatisfaction of samsara, the endless cycle of birth and death, will impel someone at a certain point to seek out that eternal love. But what about Donald Trump? Is he controlled by love? Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying this. Every being is controlled by love. So how is it so?
Because we're controlled by Krishna's.
We're not talking about prema, we're talking about preeti.
Okay.
There's a distinction here. Yes, at the back.
Maybe because, like, also if we are in identification with our body, we are soul, and so this soul is looking for what is done for love. So at how material level, also if we are unconscious of that, we are looking for that. So when we see some love, what we can
Identify.
as love, we run in this direction, and we can easily take everything for love, but it's not love because this is a material level. So we are looking for, but because we are in the body, we cannot really know what is it, but we know there is love.
So everyone is chasing what they love. We maybe don't know what love is, but we know in a worldly context what we love. Money, power, anuka, pizza, so many things. We're not talking about prema, we're talking about preeti. So everyone's chasing what they love. So the whole world is controlled by love. People love their family, they love their job. So that everyone is empowered by love. This is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying. Everyone in Swarga is enjoying so much and they love the heavenly planet. So they are controlled by Preeti. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Chandidas is saying, Preeti is controlling the entire universe. We won't go too much into the metaphysics today, but think about this. Every single being in the universe is controlled by love. Even if you're in a job that you hate, but you think one day, I'll save enough money and I will retire and I'll be so happy and I will love it when I retire. So you're still working towards the ideal that you have, that you love. So we can defer our loving position, but we still are orientated by what we love. Understand?
When you were talking about being controlled by love, I was thinking more in the sense that nothing that we do is separate from Krishna, because Krishna's love controls everything in existence, and so that preeti that you're talking about is like an expansion or distortion of that prema. So we can't have pure prema, but there is everything is like a minute distortion or reflection of that pure prema, because everything is ultimately controlled by Krishna.
Yes, this material world is the abhas, the reflection of the eternal spiritual world. So the prema is reflected here in the lokic preeti, the lokic love. So yes, there is a relationship. You're thinking very deep. This is a class for the devotees, so they've gone straight into the deep end. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying everyone is controlled by love in every single planetary system. It's something very profound. We think, oh, what's the ruling powers on this planet? Money, position, war, government. But every single person in those positions, they are doing what they love. They want more power. They love the ideal of power. Ravana was controlled by love, his love of ego. So people are always operating under love, but this is not prema. There's a distinction here. So you can think about that for yourself. You don't have to agree. But this is what Chandidas is saying. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written a very lovely article. So when we come to the higher ideal of praying, what is praying? How do we even worldly love? How do we define love?
It's being selfless.
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 Yes.
The other person's benefit.
Putting the person you love before yourself, their happiness. Would anyone like to add to that? Refute that? It sounds kind of simple, but who here has practical experience where they can do that every day? It's very difficult. That's why we're in the school of love. Bhakti is performed by Swarup Shakti. When you have your vision turned away from Krishna, everything is carried out by the three gunas, the three modes of material nature. And when you have your vision turned towards Krishna, and you are under the shelter of Sri Guru, then for the first time Swarup Shakti can enter into you, and by the grace and power of Sri Guru, then Bhakti Shakti is coming, and our activities can then really be Bhakti. Otherwise, when it's instigated from the platform of ego, then it's not Bhakti. This is the gunas at play. So, one day, Radharani, she was with her Sakhis, with her friends, and she was crying because Krishna had left her. Lalita, Vishaka, the others were saying, "Oh, why are you crying over that black boy? He can just give you up, so you should also give him up." Right? Your partner's causing you some problem, just give him up. Go on, what is it? Some of these apps and just get another one, you know? Just swipe and get another one. This is the modern mentality. So then Radharani said, "I cannot do it." And she said, "Let me tell you a story. Once there was a very, very beautiful, wealthy and prosperous city in Madhya Pradesh. And the king was very wealthy and powerful, and there was many well-off businessmen in this kingdom. But there was one very poor Brahmin in this kingdom, very poor. And his wife's name was Sevya. And in this previous life, this Brahmana, he had actually committed some sins. So in this life, he developed leprosy quite severely. And pus was coming out of his sores, and a very strong odor was there. But Sevya, she cared for her husband lovingly. She really loved her husband, even though she was poor. And with pus coming out of his wounds, every day she would clean the wounds and dress them and lovingly embrace him. And whatever desire that this Brahmana had, Sevya would fulfill that desire. However she could, she would try to fulfill the desires of her husband. This is a Vedic wife, says Gurudev. So she loved him very much, even though he was a bit of a miserable so-and-so. And one day he was sitting outside their little hut, and a very, very beautiful courtesan walked by. And his mind was captivated. Kama esha rajaguna somvaha. Lust is the all-devouring enemy of this world. So his mind was completely intoxicated. And he wanted to enjoy with this courtesan. But he knew he was very poor. How could he afford her? So then he became even more miserable, and he was in depression. And then his wife came and said, "Oh, Swami, why are you feeling so dejected? Tell me what you want. Whatever you want, if it should be done, if it should not be done, just tell me, and I will do my best to satisfy your desire." And the Brahmana said to Sevya, you're talking useless talk. There's no point in having such fruitless conversation. What I really want can't be fulfilled, so let's just stop talking. And Sevya, she was very insistent. So she insisted, please my husband, just tell me what you want. And then that Brahmana, he shared his heart. And he said, there's one very beautiful courtesan and I want to enjoy with her. But alas, alas, we're very poor and I cannot afford. So then Sevya, she thought very carefully how she could fulfill the desire of her husband. And her husband's mind was burning day and night with this desire, with this Rajagun, I want to enjoy. I want to enjoy. She's so young, she's so fresh, she's so beautiful. His mind was captivated, but I cannot afford her. All her clients will be very wealthy, very rich. I'm just a poor Brahmana. I cannot enjoy with this courtesan. And then Sevya, she folded her hands and she said, oh my dear husband, I will do everything in my capacity to fulfill your desire. Are we at this level? I'm not saying this is a prescription, but this is fulfilling the desire of the other. Don't forget who's telling this katha. So,
Who's telling the katha?
this is Radharani.
Okay.
So, then Sevya, she began to come up with a plan. And she went to that courtesan's yard in the night time, at the end of the night when business is closing down for the night, because she used to work late into the night. And so when she went to take rest, Sevya entered into her courtyard with a bucket of cow dung, a broom, and she cleaned the courtyard very nicely. And she smeared the cow dung on the walls of the courtyard, and she had some very bright colours of different powdered rice. And then when that courtesan awoke in the morning, she came out to her courtyard and she saw all the cow dung on the ground and on the walls and all the beautiful colours and the beautiful designs and the pictures on the floor of the courtyard and on the walls. And she said, oh, who has done this? So she called her servants and said, who's done this? And they were, we don't know. We don't know how this happened. So that courtesan, she was looking around and who could have done this? So this happened again the following night. And then the next day, when the night was almost over, that courtesan, she woke up and she was like, tonight, this went on for some days, and she's like, tonight I'm going to catch whoever's doing this. So there, in the very early hours of the morning, she waited, and Sevya came into the courtyard with the bucket of cow dung and the rice powder, different colours. And then she saw that, the courtesan saw that very poor Brahmin lady dressed in very raggedy cloth. And she said, because if you engage someone who's in a higher position than you in your service, this is actually, we have to be very careful here. So if a very pious person will be engaged in the service of a very impious person, a bad reaction can come to the impious person. So this courtesan, she was also very clever. So she said to Sevya, oh, what are you doing? I will be ruined. How can someone serve who is more pious? How can they be serving someone like me? I will lose everything by your actions. So then she began to beg to Sevya, what can I do? What can I do to repay you? What can I do to be free from this debt? Please forgive me. Please forgive me. You're trying to destroy my life. What have I done? What have I done? So it's almost like she was trying to do some black tantra, she was feeling. And she was trying to get out of this. Do you want gold? Do you want jewels? Do you want money? Please tell me what you want. Tell me what you want and I will give it to you. And Sevya said, the thing that I want has nothing to do with wealth. I have another type of work you can do if you agree to it. And then if you do this favor for me, I will consider that we are even. I'll be very pleased. So then the courtesan she said to Sevya, yes, please tell me, what is my mission? I will fulfill my mission. And then Sevya explained to her what her mission was. And the courtesan was like, okay. So she took a moment to think about it. And then she said, my time is very busy, but we can fix one date and I will slot your husband in and I will satisfy the needs of your husband. So then some time went on and I want you to come at a very particular time so none of my clients see your husband and it doesn't ruin my reputation, because my clients are very well to do. So then Sevya thought, yes, okay, I'll arrange everything. And she went home and she told her husband, I've arranged for you to meet with the courtesan. And the husband was very pleased, a little bit shocked. But then he thought, well, how will I go? Because his leprosy was so severe, he could not even walk. I have such pain in my legs, he thought. And then Sevya said, don't worry, I'll carry you on my back to the courtesan's house. Sometimes we get aggravated folding the washing for our beloved, doing the dishes, cooking for them. See the example of Sevya. So, and this goes both ways, male and female. So then the appointed night came, but on that same night there was a very rich businessman and his house got broken into. And thieves stole many treasures from his house. And immediately that rich businessman, he went to the Maharaj, the king, and he said, oh, you're not protecting your kingdom. Some thieves have come into my house and they've stolen very valuable treasures from my house. And so the king, he thought, I cannot have thieves in my kingdom. So immediately he got his guards together and he sent his guards out to look for those thieves. So the guards went out throughout the kingdom looking for the thieves who had stolen treasure from the businessman. And the soldiers thought, our king's very furious about this, we have to catch this thief, otherwise he will kill us. So do or die, we must catch this thief. So they were searching here and there. And then very close on the outskirts of the town, there was a sage named Mandavya Rishi. And Mandavya Rishi, he was sitting in meditation, he was in samadhi. And he had withdrawn his prana completely inside and he was meditating on Brahman. His senses were completely disconnected from his body. And then those soldiers, they came across this person in the shadows on the outskirts of the city, and they thought, here's our thief. So they caught hold of Mandavya Rishi and they took him to the king. And the king, they told the king, we've caught the thief. And the king thought, yes, he should be taught a good lesson. And I want to set an example for anyone who thinks, even has the thought of stealing anything from my kingdom. And all this time, Mandavya Rishi, he was still in Samadhi. So then the king thought, get one stake outside the city and I want you to impale this person. So then the guards, they took Mandavya Rishi and they impaled him on a stake outside the city. But he was just in Brahman. And then that same night, Sevya, she was carrying her husband on her back in the dark through the various gates of the city to the house of the courtesan. And then it was quite some distance. And Sevya, she was actually quite struggling. Sweat was coming from her forehead. She was panting, breathing heavily, carrying the weight of her husband all the way from their little shack to the house of the courtesan. And during this time, her husband's heart had began to melt, seeing the efforts of his wife. And it just so happened that she was taking the same path, and they came across Mandavya Rishi on the stake. And in the dark, she bumped into the Rishi. Never disturb a Rishi when he's meditating. Learned this many times from the Puranas. So, just prior to that, her husband's heart actually melted, seeing the dedication and the love that his wife had. She'll do anything for me. What wife will carry her husband to the prostitute or even give him permission? But here she is, selflessly fulfilling the desire of her husband. And then that husband, he began to think, I'm such a wretched person. What am I doing? I have a loving wife and I'm thinking about enjoying with another woman. And his eyes began to open. And right at that time, the Rishi Mandavya, he came out of Samadhi. And lo and behold, he's impaled on a stake. Imagine that, waking up. So, seeing this, and he'd been touched by a leper, by the Brahmin on the back of Sevya. So then, Mandavya Rishi, he gave a curse. Oh, this leper touched me. So, before the sun rises, you will die. But Sevya loved her husband so much. Another thing we learn from the Vedas is the power of chastity. So then, Sevya told the Rishi, the sun will not rise. I will not let my husband die. A chaste woman can even curse Krishna. It's there. So don't underestimate the power of chastity. So Sevya, she carried her husband back home. He said, no, I don't want to enjoy anymore. Let's just go back home. So she carried her husband home. She put him on the bed. And then it was dark. 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. The cows didn't know when to give milk. The birds didn't know when to wake up, when to go to bed. The vegetables stopped growing. The Devatas becomes concerned. The Brahmanas become concerned. The yajnas stopped happening. The whole world came to a halt because of Sevya's power. She could stop the sun from rising. So then the Devatas, headed by Indra, they came to Brahmaji and they said, well, what's going on in the universe? And Brahmaji, he meditated and he said, oh, it's because of that chaste lady Sevya. So then Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, all the demigods, they got on their airplanes, their vimanas, and they came down to earth. And the whole place was illuminated like thousands and thousands of suns. And Lord Brahma, he said to Sevya, all the cows, all the Brahmins, all the demigods, they will die if you don't allow the sun to rise. So you should give up your anger and allow the sun to rise. And Sevya says, whatever happens to anyone else, this is not my business. I'm only interested in my beloved, in my husband. My only devotion is to my husband. And by the curse of Mandavya Rishi, if the sun rises, then my husband will die, and I cannot allow this. Under any circumstances, I will not allow it. This is called Aikantic, one-pointed devotion. So the whole world may be finished, but I have to serve my Ishta. So she said, I have not taken this vow out of greed or any selfish motivation. I have done it only for my husband. And then Lord Brahma, he said, okay, look, if one person dies so many may live, then you'll get more punya, more pious credit. It'll be good for your karma. And Sevya said, I don't want any pious credit or anything. If I cannot serve my husband, I'm not interested. Then Brahma said, look, I promise you, if you withdraw your words, and the sun will rise, and by the curse of Mandavya Rishi, because the Rishi's curse has to come true, your husband, yes, he will die. He will be burnt to ashes. But from those ashes, your husband will again come back to life with a fresh new body, looking like Kamadev, the god of love himself. So then, she said, Tatastu, let it be so. And then the sun rose. And the husband, he was burnt to ashes. But he rose again from the ashes, a very beautiful, fresh body. And that Brahmin lady, Sevya, she became like Lakshmi Devi herself. And devotees from Swargaloka, they actually came down in a flower airplane and they took them away to Swargaloka to enjoy. So then Radharani, she said to her Sakhis, why don't you leave Krishna? But I say no. This is not the way. Because my relation to Krishna is like that chaste lady Sevya. Even if there's reasons for the love to be broken, the love won't be broken. I can never give up his service. So if a person has this kind of spirit of selfless, loving service towards Krishna, which is first coming in the service of Sri Guru, following the instructions of Sri Guru. And we can't jump ahead to Rupanuga Sadhana. One expression of our love is following the Vaidhi Bhakti, because we're under the guidance of Sri Guru. How Guru is personally guiding us. We may be disinterested in some things, but we want to please the object of our love. So, if we have this kind of love and dedication, then certainly Krishna will reveal himself. And we can find what everyone is looking for. Priti, love, pure transcendental love, prema. And that treasure, that gold is buried within everyone, but every day they're walking over it, walking around here and there without even knowing it. But we can discover that treasure by the grace of Sri Guru. And it doesn't matter what your position is with your brahmachari, sannyasi, grahastha household, everyone has this potential to uncover that love. And this example, it doesn't matter what your worldly responsibilities are either. And this example was also given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu of how to do bhajan. You know, the example of the potter's wheel was given. Externally, he was going around doing his daily activities. There may be some worldly responsibilities, and you should take care of them very attentively. But in their heart, they should always be thinking of their beloved, Krishna, Radharani, Gurudev, and how we can serve them, how we can be in loving service, and how ultimately we can please them and put their pleasure before our own. Nabilasata shunyam gyanakarmadi navritam anukulena Krishna anujilanam bhakti uttama. Don't let your worldly activities be anavritam, eclipsed. But that's a big goal. So Radharani has shared some very nice katha via Gurudev of an example of pure love. Something very high. And we can take our own pulse and see, oh, where am I at on this scale? Where am I at even on the preachy worldly love about pleasing those around me? So our goal is very high, but by the grace of Guru, by the grace of Nityananda, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can come to that level of Sevya. And Radha and Krishna's pleasure can be our pleasure. And paradoxically, we'll experience more pleasure than any pleasure we can obtain in this material world. So they say. Nittai go Premanande Hari Go. Any thoughts, reflections, objections?
It's an interesting reminder about, these truths, eternal truths that in the Vedas that aren't discussed in our culture. The subtle powers from austerities like chastity and loyalty, and I'm sure there's many others, that rishis are engaged in to get material benefits.
Yeah, Gurudev's given some very nice classes. Last time he was in New Zealand, female mystics of the Vedas, and explained 5 maidens from the Vedic tradition and the power of their chastity, which is very much counter to the modern narrative for females and relationships in general. But immense power comes from this Vedic lifestyle. And we see that Sevya wasn't a rishi, she wasn't in the Himalayas, she wasn't doing tapasya in a cave, she was just serving her husband. And she can control the sun. So
it's interesting how it also made me think Sevya's husband, you know.
Yes.
How through her being loyal,
That transformed his heart.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, like Gurudev has one nice clip, you can't control anyone. You can't impose and expect a change of heart. And just by serving, her husband had a total transformation of heart. Of course, she could have gone, what are you doing? Wanting to enjoy, blah, blah, blah. But totally she eradicated that samskara from his consciousness by loving service. And this is what Gurudev is engaging us in, loving service to eradicate all these material samskaras.